Alright everybody, welcome back. The most hyped event vehicle of the year is here, and well, that's for good reason. You can get your hands on a free F-14A, for a limited time of course. I presume that most of y'all watching this have been doing your task, and so, today, the day this video is uploaded on, will be the first day you're able to actually play your shiny new F-14. And well, what are you getting into? Well, as it's the Iranian F-14, it is basically an F-14A with different loadouts. When it comes to the stuff that it shares with the American F-14, it does have access to the AIM-7E2 as its early radar missiles. It gets access to the AIM-54A. It of course has the exact same flight model. And it also shares the same subpar for the battle rating RWR. Now, for the vehicle itself, in my opinion, this is more of a side grade to the American F-14A. And honestly, if you're looking for something that fits the meta, this is probably going to be worse. I'm going to start off with the missiles that we're already familiar with this thing has, and well, for Sidewinders, it's just a straight downgrade. It goes from the AIM-9H to the AIM-9P. Sure, on paper, the AIM-9P might look better because it pulls 20 Gs instead of the 18 of the AIM-9H, but it has a much worse motor and less range. It does lose access to the AIM-7F that you just saw me dodge, and gain access to only 2 R-27Rs. And this is more of a toss-up depending on who you ask, whether it's a benefit or a downside. Now, I will say for sure, having 6 AIM-7Fs as an option is definitively better than only having the 2 R-27Rs and the Fakours or the Phoenix, whatever you want to run. When it comes to if you're just running 4 activator hauling missiles though, and if you want to run the AIM-7Fs or the R-27Rs alongside, personally, I prefer the R-27R. It will lose the joust to the AIM-7F every time. It's slower and has a much shorter burn time as well, but in exchange it is much more agile. It pulls 35 Gs, and the bigger thing is that it has an absolutely incredible seeker head. It has the exact same seeker head as the R-27ER. I mean, really, the R-27ER and R are the same missile, just with a different motor. And you aren't really going to be rolling to dodge it like I did with that AIM-7F earlier. Now, most players don't know how to roll to dodge, so for most players, the AIM-7F being faster, having better burn time, and still being very agile is going to be the better pick. I just prefer the R-27R because with these specific missiles right here, I'm using them at close range, like less than 10 kilometers most of the time anyway, so that extra range doesn't really matter, and having the missile that is not going to be just rolled to dodge is kind of important. If I could bring 6 of the R-27s, then that would be a completely different story, but unfortunately they only fit under the wing pylons. And by the way, there is a chance that we could lose the R-27s on the F-14 as well, because the radar didn't actually work with it, and there are people that are actively trying to bug report to get it removed. Personally, I hope it stays on there because I'm not super concerned with historical accuracy. I mean, we have stuff like the F-16AJ in game, and I think it'd be cool to have it, but just keep that in mind that it may happen. Now that we've gotten through all the weapons that, we're already familiar with, well, the Iranians made some of their own, kind of homebrew ones as well, pretty much exclusively using the Hawk motor. Now, the Fakour 90 is the star of this vehicle, and it does have some advantages and some disadvantages. One of those that is considerably less agile than the Phoenix. As you can see, it just completely missed this Mirage 5F flying in a straight line. In exchange for that, however, it is substantially faster than the Phoenix. I mean, it's the fastest missile in game, just period. The stat card says Mach 4. That's lies. I mean, in this clip alone, it got to Mach 4.6. It would not shock me in the slightest if this thing could actually break Mach 5 whenever you're at high altitude and high speed when you launch it. And because of this, I think it is just a better Phoenix in the game. Even though it is less agile, even though it is easier to dodge, the Phoenix was already relatively easy to dodge for the most part anyways, and so having one that just gets there faster and gives the enemy less time to react is an overall improvement if you ask me. As for what exactly changed between the two, the biggest thing, at least in game, is simply the fact that it has a different motor. In this case, it's from the Hawk, and so this gives it massively more thrust than the Phoenix. So for comparison, the Phoenix has a thrust of 14,350 newtons for 30 seconds. This of course means it has pretty slow acceleration to start off with, but it can pick up some decent speed as time goes on, because 30 seconds is a long burn time. The Fakour 90, on the other hand, starts with 83,900 newtons of thrust for a whopping 5 seconds. That's what gives this thing its kick off the rail. It is one of the fastest missiles when it comes to acceleration in the game. And that's just the first 5 seconds. It has another 21 seconds with 12,400 newtons of thrust. So just to put this into perspective, its sustainer is almost as strong as the normal Phoenix's after having that massive booster, which is why it is just so incredibly quick. Now, the Seeker is copy and paste in the Phoenix, and it is pretty easy overall to dodge, but if you're at super high altitude like these guys are right here, then you might be in a little bit of trouble. You know, same thing if you're low in a vehicle which doesn't have a good RWR, or, you know, doesn't have an RWR like the J35XS, for example. Well, this thing is going to be dishing out a world of pain. Honestly though, except for niche cases like this right here, I haven't had that much success with it. Like personally, I would say I've been getting about as many kills with this, you know, per my average match, as I would have with the Phoenix. It feels like the same people that are dying to this are the same ones that die to the Phoenix regardless. Like, I would rather use this if I had to choose between the two, but I don't think it's like a massive upgrade over the Phoenix, if you ask me at least. And it also does come with a costier flight performance because it is also substantially heavier with a massive 637 kilograms. The Phoenix was already heavy at 443, so you definitely are going to want to get these off as soon as you can. If you really want to hold on to these for those close range jousts against other people, it can, because it both starts turning faster than the Phoenix, and of course because it accelerates faster, its fins actually start working earlier. It's just with many people, you're still going to run into that fact of, well, it's a 15G missile that is noticeably less agile than the Phoenix, which is already very easy to dodge. So for a lot of people, you're not going to have luck with this. Speaking of not having a lot of luck with it, the other option you get for those outer pylons instead of the R-27 is actually called the Sedjil. I'm just going to call it the Hawk for the rest of the video just because it's easier on me to remember, and it is literally a Hawk SAM that the Iranians strapped to the F-14, which I find incredibly hilarious, but yeah, it's kind of pitiful. So it does have that good range, and it's actually the first SAR missile in the game to loft as far as I'm aware, which is kind of cool, but it's still a 15G missile. And as you saw right there, it is very, very, very easy to dodge. I will be completely honest and say I didn't try it that much, but I've tried it in custom battles against other friends and stuff, and all it takes is a small turn and it's just gonna miss. Sometimes it doesn't even try to correct. I checked the files and it should have the same secret as the AIM-7F, but it's just really not all that good. And considering it takes the same pylons as the R-27R, which is a much, much better missile, it's just kind of like, why would you ever bring it? And the last of the funny Iranian weapons they added is actually called the Yasser, and the Iranians took a 750-pound bomb and they strapped the Hawk motor to it. So it has like a 26-second burn time rocket with a 750-pound bomb on the end. And it also has a 10-meter proxy fuse as well. Now, it does have a time delay after dropping before it actually fires off, so it's not super effective at killing enemy planes, but if you get it close enough, if you time it right, you can totally smite an enemy. Or if there's someone camping their airfield, for example, you know, you can fire that from far away and it'll airburst above the airfield and damage them. Speaking of, right now, it actually cannot hit the ground. It detonates before hitting the ground, so it's going to have very limited use in ground RB. If it's like some light vehicles, you might be able to splash damage them, but for most of these vehicles, you're going to need a direct hit, not something detonating, 10 meters or 30 feet up in the air. That's actually why I didn't even try and get any ground RB footage for this thing, just because it's not really working quite properly at the moment. Another thing you have to be careful of, if you saw my intro clip, is that if you fire them like right after each other, one of them will detonate the other one and it will destroy your vehicle. Gaijin will probably fix this at some point by extending the length it takes for the proximity fuse to arm, but for the meantime, just be very careful. If you fire one, wait a couple seconds before you actually go ahead and fire another one. And in any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. I have been super excited for this vehicle, and I'm glad it's finally here. It is just overall a good decision on Gaijin's part to give us something that is, both easy for them to make because it is the same airframe, but actually has some unique differences that make it a viable vehicle in game. Hope you enjoyed the video and this plane. If you did, feel free to go ahead and hit that like button, help me out with the algorithm. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and do that as well, and I'll catch y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.